The American Psychiatric Association is coming up with their latest edition of their Diagnostic Manual, and you say that they're coming up with all of these new diagnoses and eliminating some others, all for financial reasons, to get billing codes, and for PC reasons as well. Please explain.
Yeah, and listen, it gives me no pleasure to say this about the American Psychiatric Association. However, when you start creating disorders by committee, right, groups of psychiatrists getting together in Washington or Virginia and saying, let's create new diagnoses. Grief is going to be a new disorder. Shyness, a new disorder. You have to start thinking, now, why would they be adding terms like that to their Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, by the way, version 5? Well, number one, if you keep coming out with versions, you sell millions of dollars worth of books. Literally millions. Because every psychiatrist and psychologist and psychiatric social worker has to have the DSM-5.
As well as all the billers.
And all the billers. And not only that, but if you were wondering, as a guild, as the American Psychiatric Association might, how are we going to bill Blue Cross Blue Shield for grief? Well, now it's diagnosis 301.75X, you know, and now you have a billing code associated with it. This, though, isn't the truth. So it distances the profession from its real roots in understanding and empathy. Tell me about your life and why you're grieving. Let's get to the bottom of it. Instead, to label it, and then, of course, because the APA has a history of getting into bed with pharmaceutical companies, to then treat it by virtue of this medicine and then bill for the services. This is what's wrong with American healthcare.
And it becomes a mandate next, I presume, right? So New York State will say you have to cover grief treatment and...
You have to cover grief treatment and
shyness.
It short circuits understanding. You got to get to the bottom of a loss. Tell me about the loss. And this paves the way to say, no, just take this, forget talking about that. Just take this medicine for it and let us bill.
Right.
Psychiatrists can make about 3 times as much if they see people in 10-minute intervals and write prescriptions every 10 minutes, as opposed to talking to them about their life stories. It's enough. The APA presided over the decimation of the talking cure in psychiatry. We have to get back to insight. We have to get back to truth. And similarly, they can't go and cherry pick and take out diagnoses. Do you know that the APA says, and they took it out, used to be a diagnosis, ego dystonic homosexuality, meaning if you had those impulses and you hate them, you don't want to express them, you consider them other, that of course would seem to be a psychological problem. Politically, they felt that was untenable, so they get out the liquid paper or the correction fluid. Out it comes from the Diagnostic Manual. What kind of science is this? Can you imagine endocrinologists or radiologists or internists getting together in committees and saying, hey, I thought of a diagnosis yesterday, and have you seen this in the field? No, it's long and tested trials and data that establish diabetes, pulmonary disease. I don't think we should be inventing a nomenclature.
So what happens? The APA comes up with these new diagnoses and labels, and is there anything that happens after that has to be voted on or approved? Or?
Well, it's by committee, and the committee has to assent to this. And there is a lot of discord about this because I think psychiatrists are now getting the feeling like, wait a second, we've already lost some credibility because certain antidepressants, for instance, stack up kind of, well, equal to placebos. Right?
Maybe they taste better.
They may taste better, they may look better in capsules. But to then add to insult to injury by saying we're going to publish a volume now this thick with 350 disorders, some of which we thought of during last year, that doesn't make sense.